Well, hello everybody. It is 11 a.m. on the East Coast. So we'll go ahead and we'll get started. Thanks for showing up. I really appreciate it. I know you're taking time out of your day to join us for these webinars. I really appreciate it. Today we're going to be talking about technology and purchasing new technology, specifically purchasing a new computer. I'm kind of doing this to help a lot of you who are looking to upgrade your computer, looking to upgrade, maybe add a laptop, maybe add a new desktop, maybe you have a trainee coming in, you're going to have to buy some technology for them. That's really what this webinar is going to be all about. Now, it's not going to take very long. We're not going to spend too much time on it, but I do want you guys to participate. So if you have any questions, all you need to do excuse me, is just use the little chat that is going to be down there or on the over there to the right. If you have a YouTube account, you'll be able to chat and ask questions. If you are not signed in with a Google or a YouTube account, you can also just simply email me. Just send them an email to training@sfrep.com. And if you're watching this webinar after the fact, you can also just send an email to training@sfrep.com. Now, I'm going to also provide you guys with my telephone number. And the reason I do that is because we have a fancy voice over IP phone system and it allows me to text with you. So I'm going to give you that number. It is area code 828-919-9082. That's 828-919-9082. Now, what I want you to do with that number, if you try to call me, I probably won't answer, especially if it's after hours. But if you text me at that number, when you go to Best Buy or to Staples or Office Depot, or if you're just browsing the internet looking for a new computer, I'll be happy to help you out, give you some tips. You can send me some pictures of what you're looking at, and we can kind of go over the pros and cons of that particular device. Now, the first thing I want to go over here with you guys is going to be the recommended specs. Now, these are kind of the recommended specs from SFREP. I mean, obviously, I'm with SFREP, but just know that pretty much any computer that is out there on the market right now can run Appraise-It Pro just fine. Whether it's Windows 11, Windows 10, Windows 8 with the latest service packs, it will run Appraise-It Pro no problem at all, so you don't have to worry about that. But I'm going to give you some recommended specs that will give you the best possible experience when running Appraise-It Pro. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and put those up on the screen now, and you can write them down, figure out, just go ahead and jot these down, and you can take this with you when you go to your local retailer. And by the way, I do recommend that you do go to a local retailer. And by that, I mean, it could be a big box store. It could be, Staples, even Sam's Club, Costco, places like that. But what you're going to be looking for are these specs. Now, the specs down here below for RAM and storage, these are going to be pretty common on any desktop or laptop out there right now. These are mid-range specs. These are not gamer specs. These are not, $150 laptop specs. These are going to be solid mid-range specs. And I'm going to concentrate real quickly first on the RAM and the storage, because these you're going to see over and over again, and pretty much everything you're going to look at is going to have these. So remember, RAM memory, this is different from storage. RAM is the space that the processor uses to do all of its work. Okay. So the RAM that you're going to see out there most commonly is going to be 8 gigabytes of RAM. That is more than enough to run Appraise-It Pro. If you can get more RAM, great, go for it. But don't spend a ton more money just to get some extra RAM. It's not going to do much for you. If you were editing video, if you were doing complex photo editing, and I mean really big photo editing, it might help you out a little bit. But really, if you're not gaming, if you're doing business applications, home budgeting, things like that, 8 gigabytes of RAM, more than enough. Also storage, 256 gigabytes of solid state storage, solid state drive SSD. Now, this is important. You want to make sure that it is solid state storage, a solid state drive that is often abbreviated as SSD. You do not want a hard disk drive or HDD. That's how it's usually abbreviated. A hard disk drive is the traditional, spinning mechanical hard drive that we've had for decades. They're much slower. They're much less reliable than solid state storage. You're going to want to look for the solid state storage. And once again, this is going to be fairly common on a modern, currently on the market computer, that 256 gigabytes. Now, if this is going to be your primary computer, you may want to look around a little bit more and try to go to 512 or even a terabyte. But finding that on and off the shelf computer right now, you really have to kind of bump up in price. And to find a terabyte, a lot of times you have to go all the way to a gaming computer. Now, that's not to say that it's not fairly easy to add extra storage to your computer. You can do that via upgrading the solid state drive that comes with the computer. Of course, in doing that, you're going to have to reinstall Windows, and you'll probably want to get a technician involved in doing something like that. But it is an option. The other option, which is what I do with my business computer, is to connect a USB 3.0 flash drive. And they make small little low profile ones, and I don't think I have one handy right now, but they make small little low profile ones that you can connect into one of the USB ports on your computer. And it will not be as fast as the solid state storage, but it will be more than fast enough for you to have some extra storage. You can probably get a 256 gigabyte one to double your storage for, $50 or $60 tops, probably considerably less than that. So don't worry too much about the storage. 256 gigs, especially if you're not, downloading lots of videos and stuff like that, that's going to be more than enough. Now, let's go back up here to the processor, because that's rather important. And I have two processors that I've listed here. That's the AMD Ryzen 5 or the Intel Core i5. Both of these processors, they're by two different companies. AMD and Intel are kind of rivals, and they are the two largest processor makers out there in the market. They've both been around for, decades and decades at this point. One of the cool things that AMD has done is they've kind of put their numbering scheme for their processors in parity with Intel. So in the Intel Core line of processors, and by core, that's kind of what they mean. These are the most common processors that are put on mainstream laptops. The Core processors go from Core i3 to Core i5 to Core i7 to Core i9. Now, why do they not go in sequential order? I don't know. That's just the way they did it. Maybe they wanted to leave a little bit of space if they wanted to put some mid-range processors in there. I don't know. But 3, 5, 7, 9. 3 is, if you find a really good value on a laptop and it has a Core i3 processor, go for it. That is perfectly serviceable for Appraise-It Pro. I like to bump it up a little bit because we're talking about, the computer that you're going to be doing your entire business on. So I really like to tell people, invest a little bit more money, get a little bit better processor. It'll last you longer. It's not going to, you're going to be in that sweet spot of computing power for far longer than you would if you just got the Core i3. And generally, computers that come with a Core i3 processor are going to be on the lower end anyway of workmanship and build quality. So go with the Core i5. That's kind of the mainstream processor. Even gamers use Core i5s, and they need a lot more power. So Core i5 will be more than enough power. If you find a 7 out there, go for it. If you find a good deal, the more the better. These are minimum specs here, or these are recommended specs. If you want to go above these, go for it. Now, you can sometimes find a Core i9, especially on desktops, completely overkill. That's mainly for gamers and people who need a lot of horsepower for whatever they're doing. So Core i5 is where I'm going to recommend. Now, difference between, and when I said parity, a Core i3 would be a Ryzen 3, a Core i5 would be a Ryzen 5, a Core i7 would be a Ryzen 7. You get the idea. Now, which one do I recommend? Either. However, just so you know, AMD Ryzen processors right now, they go back and forth, but in this current generation, the Ryzen processors do tend to be a little bit faster. but they definitely have better graphics. So these are all what are called systems on a chip. And what a system on a chip is the processor is not just the processor anymore. The processor contains the graphic processing unit, the regular processor, all of the disk controllers, all that stuff is just on one chip. So they call it system on a chip. And the graphics that come on an AMD Ryzen chip are, I wouldn't say vastly superior, but considerably superior to what comes on an Intel Core chip. Intel's gotten better. They have their new Iris graphics that are better. And they also have an Evo platform that they're coming out with, but they're still not as good as AMD. So a lot of times you can find an AMD processor based laptop a little bit cheaper than an Intel. So don't be scared to go for that. Absolutely. Keyboard. Keyboard's often overlooked, especially for appraisers. And remember that at the end of the day, you guys mostly type. I mean, you're typists. That's what you do. You know, you're cranking out an appraisal and you are typing for a big chunk of your day. So that's why I recommend that you go to a store and you actually use the computer, put your hands on that computer, because you really want to try out that keyboard. A lot of laptops, especially on the lower end, will have mushy keyboards. They don't feel good to type on. And the other thing I always tell people to look for is look for good contrasting keys. And what I mean by that is one of the things I do kind of want to show you guys is going to be an example of this. Okay. So let's take a look at, and I'm not even looking at specs right now. I'm just going to look at just a random computer here. Some of these are gamer computers. And if you see these prices, this is not what we're going to be looking for. Let's do a Core i5 and a Ryzen 5. We're going to filter this a little bit. Now we're on Best Buy's website. And if you have trouble seeing this, you can maximize the video to full screen using that little square bracket that's going to be in the lower right-hand corner of the video, so you can kind of see it on your entire screen. So let's take a look at this Dell Inspiron right here for $650. And what I kind of want to show you is its keyboard. If I can get it, they don't have any great shots of the keyboard. Oh yeah, they do. Here we go. So take a look at this keyboard. What I like about the keyboard is that it does have the 10 key. And on my recommended specs here, you'll see that I do put 10 key. And the reason for that is that this 10 key right here is very important for what you guys are doing. It's good for entering, numbers and everything. That way you don't have to use the number keys up here at the top. Now, if you go with a laptop that is smaller than about 15.6 inches, a lot of times you're going to lose that 10 key. So these 14-inch laptops that look really portable and look very attractive, keep in mind that most of them are not going to come with the 10 key. But the other reason I want to show you this particular laptop is something I don't like. And that is that the keys are the same color as the chassis, as the body of the laptop. That might not seem like a big deal, but I'm 46 and I know a lot of you guys are older than that. And it can sometimes cause problems with no contrast on the keys. You start missing keys, you don't find the keys easily. So one thing I like to recommend, let's back up here, is finding a laptop that has contrasting keys. I'm just going to scroll through here, see if I can find one real quick. Here's one. Now this, once again, this is a, close that. This is just an example. I mean, I'm not saying spend $1,300 on a laptop, but I do want to show you these contrasting keys here because it does make things a whole lot easier to see. It's not really any good. Doesn't look like there's any good shots of this. Now, keep in mind, this one doesn't have a 10 key, so keep that in mind. But you'll see that having the contrasting keys is going to make it a whole lot easier for you to see. So I really like that. So let's go back to these recommended. Oh, the other thing is with the keyboard, try it out, type on it a little bit. Remember that your muscle memory is going to come into play here. So you're going to make mistakes when you're typing on the keyboard in the store. Remember that you will become more familiar with it as you use it. Finally, connections. And the reason this is important is you really want to make sure that the laptop, and if it's a current mid-range laptop on the market, it's going to have this, but we want it to have USB-C and USB 3.0 or 3.1. Now, the USB 3.1, I can't imagine that any current laptop out there is not going to have that. And you'll know that it's a USB 3.1 port because it'll have a little blue, like when you look inside the port, the little plastic blade that's in there will be blue, okay? The reason you want that is the USB 3.0 and the 3.1 is the speed. And that's going to come into play here in a second, and I'll tell you why. The other thing you're going to want to see is USB-C. If you don't know what USB-C is, it's the newest connector for USB, and it is reversible. So if you have an Android phone, you already know what USB-C is. If you have an iPhone, you may not, but if you have an iPad, then you probably do, because the iPads now use USB-C. And USB-C is just a smaller connector, and it can be put in either way, which is really nice because we all have struggled putting the old USB-A, which is the traditional USB connector. You sit there and it seems like you keep flipping it around and it never goes into the slot. So the USB-C is what you're going to want to look for. And it looks like a small, if you're an iPhone user, it looks like kind of like a lightning connector. But you can ask the person at Best Buy or Staples, wherever you go. Make sure it has the USB-C. Now, the reason for this is because they don't really use docking stations anymore. And what they will have is they will have, I don't want to call them dongles, but kind of like boxes or even dongles that you can connect into your laptop through the USB-C port. And the USB-C port is almost always on a laptop going to be USB 3.0. And with that extra speed, what you can do is you can do things like connect external monitors. You can connect keyboards. You can connect mice. And if you connect it through one of these little boxes that plug into the USB 3, they essentially break out and give you all the connections you're going to need, including HDMI for your monitor, for an external monitor. You're going to get extra USB ports so that you can connect your external keyboard and external mouse, and you can feed external power into them as well so that they will charge the laptop through the USB-C port. So what ends up happening is you can have one computer, this one notebook computer, laptop computer that you will take out in the field with you, and then when you come back to the office, you just sit it on your desk, you plug in that one USB-C cable, and then magically everything comes to life and you have a desktop. So you only have to have one computer. Even if it is a laptop, you can still use it like a desktop. So that's really important. So that's why you're going to want to look for that. So what we want to do here is let's take a look at some of these laptops that are currently for sale. So let's just go back to this one that we were just looking at. This one, this Dell, personally, this is my personal opinion. I kind of put Dell on the lower end of the spectrum these days. The Dell laptops are meh. They're okay. They're not the best quality anymore. So, I think Lenovo is making the best laptops right now. Right below them, I'd probably put HP. And then I'd probably go to Dell. And Microsoft, if you're wondering about the Microsoft Surface tablets and the Surface books, I'm going to go over them in a couple of minutes. I'm going to put them in their own category and you'll see why in a couple of minutes. But let's just take a look at this Dell. This would be a good value laptop. We're at $600. Actually, it's not that great of a value, to be honest with you. $600, we're getting a Core i5. We're getting 8 gigs of RAM, 256. Once again, remember I told you this and this is going to be a reoccurring theme. Let's take a look at this. If it's a laptop, I think it is. One of the things I don't yet is this laptop is made completely of plastic. And while that makes it light, it doesn't make for the best feel and build quality. And at a $600 price tag, I just expect better. I expect a partially metal chassis. And usually it's aluminum or some type of aluminum magnesium alloy because they want it to be light. Plastic laptop for $600, not selling me on that, Dell. Let's come back up here and we'll look at some others. Stop up here at the top. And let's do, instead of best selling, let's do price low to high. The Best Buy website seems to be rather slow today. All right, so let's start. There's that Dell, and that was $650. That's sponsored. That's why it's up at the top. Let's skip over these. If you see any of these, do not get these laptops. Even if it says Lenovo, and I just said that Lenovo's making the best laptops. A $237 laptop, you're going to be making some major concessions here. Now, you may have looked at this and you go, oh, well, wait a minute. It's a Core i5. It's got 8 gigs of RAM, and it's got a 500 gigabyte hard drive. But that's the key here. There's two things that are making this laptop cheap for $237. First of all, you're not going to find this in the store. This is going to be something you have to order. One, it's refurbished. So this was either returned or it's an older laptop that was turned in. Then the other thing is that it's a hard drive. You don't want a hard drive. Even if it's a half terabyte, that's 500 gigabytes, don't get a hard drive, because this is going to mean the difference between you turning on your computer and it taking 4 minutes to boot up and it taking 20 seconds. That's the big difference between a hard drive and a solid state drive. And this thing's old anyway. It's sold out, so it doesn't really matter. So let's keep going down here. $248. It's only 14 inches. You are getting a Core i5. You are getting 8 gigs of RAM, but you're only getting 180 gigabytes of solid state drive. And you're not going to get a 10 key. And I'm telling you right now, a $250 laptop is just going to have awful build quality. So I'm just going to skip the heck over these. Let's keep going here. Where you're going to want to be is you're going to want to be kind of in that $400 to $800 price range. So I'm going to even jump to 3 here. Let's find something more in line with what we're looking at. All right, so here's another Dell $650 laptop. 8 gigs of RAM, 256 gig solid state drive, Intel Core i5. This will be a fine one, although I'm telling you right now, plastic. That's just how they roll. Up in the $410, we're at an HP EliteBook Core i5. This looks like to be an older Core i5. 8 gigs of RAM, 256 gig solid state drive. It is refurbished, so yeah, that is older. So this is going to be an older laptop. We'll stay away from the refurbished ones. Let's keep jumping up here a little bit. We want to get more into the $500 to $600 range. That's where you kind of start seeing the mainstream quality. Probably still going to have to keep going, to be honest with you. Let's switch this to best-selling laptops. Let's see what's selling well right now. So 650, here's 500. So this is not bad. So $500, you're going to get a 15.6 inch touchscreen. Believe me, you're not going to use the touchscreen. Everybody wants a touchscreen. You'll never end up using the touchscreen. We're going to get the Core i5, 8 gigs of RAM, 512 gig SSD. This is not a bad deal at all, to be honest with you. You're getting a half terabyte of storage. So you're getting double the storage of your mainline laptop. You're getting a touchscreen, which is pretty rare at the $500 price point. But the one thing I will ding it on, it does have the 10 key, but we don't have contrasting keys. But that is a personal preference of mine. If you don't mind that, this would be a great laptop to do. I really like that 512 gigabytes of solid state storage. Here's a Lenovo. This is very similar. Actually, this is almost identical to my work laptop. My work laptop is a Flex 5. So this is a Core i5, 8 gigs of RAM, 256 gigs of storage. It's graphite gray. This is going to have a backlit keyboard, which I really like. And the other thing is this is what's called a convertible or a 2-in-1, which means that you can actually you can take I really wish I had actually gotten my laptop so you could see it, but you can actually take the laptop and you can flip it around. And that can be really handy if you are going on a trip, or if you are actually if you're bringing your laptop with you to go through an inspection, you can actually flip it around and use it like a tablet. And the other thing I like to do is use it like a desktop. So I'll tint it so it's kind of tinted. And I think you can probably, if I switch back over here, you can probably see. Yeah, here you go. There's an image of it tinted right there. And so what you can do is you can actually put your keyboard and your mouse like right here and then use it like a desktop. So I really like that. So that would be a great deal. What was the price on this? $580. That's a steal. I think that would be and it's a Lenovo. Now I'm kind of partial Lenovo. They're actually based here in North Carolina where I live and I'm from. So, when you go to a state agency, you see a lot of Lenovo computers. And they are based in Raleigh, North Carolina, or right outside Raleigh in the Research Triangle Park. It is a Chinese company, but all of their computer division is based in North Carolina. And if you've never heard of Lenovo, they actually bought IBM's consumer computer division back in 2005. So these are actually kind of like IBM. You can think of them as IBM computers, essentially. Samsung Galaxy Book 15.6, touchscreen, Core i5, 8 gigs of RAM, 256 and this is becoming a theme. $500, not a bad price. It's not a convertible, so it can't flip around. And Samsung, first of all, don't ever buy a Samsung appliance like a refrigerator. Don't recommend it. But they make good TVs, they make good phones, they make good computers. I would recommend that. $650. We're looking at a Dell Inspiron. Once again, it's probably going to be plastic. It is, well, it's a little bit higher end. It might not be plastic. It might have a partial metal chassis on this one. This is a 2-in-1. So if you see flex or 2-in-1 or convertible, that means that it can fold around like I showed you earlier. We're going to get a touchscreen laptop, Core i5, 8 gigs of RAM, 256 gigs of SSD. So you're kind of seeing a theme here. So once again, I want to put up those tech specs. Processor, we're looking at AMD Ryzen 5 or Intel Core i5. RAM, we're looking at 8 gigabytes or more. Storage, 256 gigabytes of solid state storage, solid state drive. Look for that SSD moniker or that SSD abbreviation. The keyboard, we want a good feeling keyboard. We don't want the keyboard to bow when we're typing on it. We want some good clicky feedback. And the big thing for you guys, want to make sure it does have that 10 key. So you're probably going to be looking at a 15.6 inch screen or larger. When you go down to the 14 inch category, you generally lose your 10 key. And then for connections, we want to make sure that it has at least one USB-C port and that all the other ports are USB 3.0 or 3.1. 3.1 is probably what you're going to see these days. And those are the super speed. You might see that on the little label for the USB port. It'll say say SS with maybe even a little lightning bolt. And the other cool thing about those is that you can plug your phone into them and they will charge your phone at a higher wattage. So I think USB 3 ports can put out like 12 watts. And if it's a USB-C port, it can put out even more. Sometimes they can put out, 20 watts. So that'll be good for charging up your phone if you want to kind of kill two birds with one stone there. Now, if any of you have any questions, feel free to use the chat on the right. I'll be happy to answer them for you. And then once again, what I do want to give you is my direct number here at SFREP. I generally would say text me because I will be more responsive via text and I'll be happy to answer any questions you have. You can also email me, matt@sfrep.com. That's MATT @sfrep.com, or text me at area code 828-919-9082. That's 828-919-9082. You can call as well, but you may have to leave a message. But I also, of course, want to give you our tech support line, which is 800-644-4051. As always, if you have any questions related to Appraise-It Pro, or if I'm not available and you have a technical question, the folks over at our tech office, most of them are here in Western North Carolina where I am. They do a great job and they know their stuff and they'll be able to, of course, give you any help that you need. And of course, it goes without saying, if you have not upgraded to Appraise-It Pro yet, you can call that same number, 800-644-4051, select sales, and they can add it to your account. It doesn't cost anything extra. As long as you are on the Appraise-It subscription plan, then you can upgrade to Appraise-It Pro. They will set you up on your account at no additional charge, and then they can schedule one of our technicians to give you a call and install everything for you. Or if you are feeling adventurous, you can do it yourself. It's not hard. I mean, when you install, you just download the program, install it. It's going to convert everything over for you, and it's super easy and simple. So if no one has any questions, once again, let me give you my number, 828-919-9082, or email matt@sfrep.com. I'll be happy to answer any questions about technology, whether it is a about a phone or a tablet or setting up a network or whatever it may be, I'll be happy to answer those questions. You can send me pictures of laptops that you're looking at, specs that you're looking at, whatever, screenshots. I'll be happy to answer them for you. 828-919-9082. And as always, just email me if you have any questions, matt@sfarip.com. Thanks for showing up and spending a little bit of time with me. Hopefully I answered a couple questions, cleared some things up for you. I hope all of you have a wonderful rest of your week. And it is Thursday, so tomorrow's Friday. Enjoy your weekend. The weather here in Western North Carolina is great. It's sunny out. I'm probably going to go work out on the deck after this. The leaves are turning. Hopefully it's great where you are too. Have a great one, and it was great spending some time with you.